With rapid development in technology in recent years, computer information systems or CIS have become feasible, perhaps essential for use even in a small scale of business operations. Almost all entities now use computers to some extent in their accounting systems. This widespread use of computers has offered new opportunities for professional accountants and has also created some challenging problems to auditors. Despite of this fast-changing environment in business world, there are also things that both the management and the auditor should always bear in mind. Computerized environment or computer information systems have these essential characteristics that distinguish them from manual processing systems. In a manual system, it is normally possible to follow transaction through the system by examining source documents, entities records, and financial reports. In a CIS environment, these records, documents, and most especially financial reports are not possible to view, review, and can be printed out without using a computer, and one factor that makes the examination of evidences more difficult. CIS performs functions exactly as programmed. Computer can be programmed to perform a specific data processing task, and it is the duty of the person responsible for the records to be consistent. If the responsible person input records that have clerical errors, then the records that the computer will give will have also errors if they're not noticed and corrected. In a CIS environment, an authorized person can also access and alter the data programs without leaving any evidence. That's why it is important that the control to the program are only limited to the authorized personnel. Proper segregation of duties is a very essential characteristic of a sound internal control system to avoid unnecessary and unethical acts of the persons responsible in using the programs. However, because of the ability of a computer to process data efficiently, there are functions that are normally segregated in manual processing that are combined in a CIS environment. Certain transactions may be initiated by the CIS itself without the need for an input document. In a manual system, the records are written in ink on substantial paper. The only way to lose the information is to lose or to destroy the physical records. The situation is completely different in a CIS environment. The information on the computer can be easily changed. Leaving no trace of the original content, the change could happen inadvertently and huge amount of information can be quickly lost. Internal control. So what is an internal control? It is an essential prerequisite for efficient and effective management of any organization. A variety of controls are performed to check accuracy, completeness, and authorization of transactions. There are two classifications of internal control: general controls and application controls. General controls is related to the overall computer information system, and it is classified to 5 parts. And first is the organizational controls. Their plan should include the segregation between the CIS department and user departments, and the segregation of duties within the CIS department. This is a sample of the organizational department or order of operation of the entity. Second is the systems development and documentation controls. Software development must be approved by the appropriate level of management in the user department. To ensure that computer programs are functioning as designed, it must be tested and modified if needed by the user and CIS department. Third is the access controls. Every computer system should have adequate security to protect equipment, files, and programs. Access should be limited only to operations and other authorized employees. Data recovery controls. A data recovery control provides for the maintenance of backups and off-site storage procedures. Fifth, monitoring controls. It is designed to ensure that CIS controls are working effective as planned. All transaction processing involves three stages: input, processing, and output, either through the use of manual recording with ink and paper or automated systems like CIS. The input stage involves capturing mass data. The processing stage involves converting the mass of raw data into useful information, and output stage involves preparation of information in a useful form to those who wish to use it. Controls or other mechanisms must be incorporated into the system in order to ensure all data are accurately processed from start to finish. In a computer information system, this is where application controls come into the picture. These are those policies and procedures that relate to the specific use of the system. These are designed to provide reasonable assurance that all transactions are authorized and that they are processed completely, accurately, and on timely basis. Categorically, these include the following controls on every stage of the transaction process as seen on this slide, namely, controls over input, controls over processing, and controls over output. Input controls are designed to provide reasonable assurance that data submitted for processing are complete, properly authorized, and accurately translated into machine-readable form. Processing controls are concerned with input data not being lost, added, excluded, duplicated, or improperly changed during process. Output controls, on the other hand, are also concerned with completeness and accuracy, and that these outputs only be distributed to authorized personnel. An example of an application controls is key verification and field check. Key verification is where data is needed to be entered twice in order to provide more assurance that there are no key entry errors committed as seen on the picture on the left, where re-entering of password is required for verification. Field check ensures that input data agree with the required field format as shown in the picture on the right. An error should pop up whenever data entered exceeds the 10-digit control limit. Among other examples of application controls are validity checking, self-checking digit, limit checks, and control totals. The effectiveness of general CIS controls is essential to the effectiveness of CIS application controls. Thus, it may be more efficient to review the design of the general controls first before reviewing the application controls. Test of control in a CIS environment basically has same procedure in testing in a manual environment. In auditing entities who use a CIS as part of their internal control, auditor must understand the basics of the system used. Segregation of duties, even in a CIS environment, must always be observed. For example, a cashier who receives and records cash transaction should not be the one who records said transactions in system used by an entity. Moreover, the one who prepares disbursement must not be the same person who records cash transaction. The auditors must ensure the corresponding supporting documents in whatever transactions or activities recorded in the CIS. Auditing around the computer is similar to testing control in manual control structure in that it involves examinations of documents and reports to determine the reliability of the systems. It also based on the assumptions that if the input reconciles with the output, then the computer program must have processed the transaction accurately. It can be used only if there are visible input, documents, and detailed output that will enable the auditor to trace individual transactions back and forth. Also known as the white box approach or auditing within the computer as opposed to manual control testing. Computer-assisted audit techniques or CAATs are programs and data which the auditor uses as part of the audit procedures to process data of audit significance contained in an entity's information systems. Some of the commonly used CAATs include test data, integrated test facility, and parallel simulation. This data is primarily designed to test the effectiveness of the internal control procedures which are incorporated in the client's computer program. Its objective is to determine whether the client's computer programs can correctly handle valid and invalid conditions as they arise. As an example shown on this slide, a client asserts that they are using a CIS called SAP Business in their daily course of business. The auditor then grabs a copy of the said program and installs it on his PC. He then makes a test account for a fictitious customer in the system, omitting any clearing accounts in order to test the system, as an expected output of an error should pop up whenever any transaction is executed involving payments from the said dummy customer. As expected, whenever any payment made by the customer is tried to be recorded, an error would indeed pop up, which would generate evidence in favor of the assertion of the management. The auditor may then try to add a made-up clearing account for the fictitious customer and run the test all over again to see if the error would disappear. Another kind of CAAT is integrated test facility, which is used to overcome the disadvantage of a test data technique which doesn't provide assurance that the program tested is the same one being used by the client throughout the accounting period. On the same example, only that instead of the auditor testing a copy of the program in his own independent computer, this time, the auditor would be using the actual system used by the client. High diligence and due care are needed using this technique, as it is prone on contaminating the legitimate transactions used by the client by the test dummy transactions being made by the auditor. Parallel simulation is a simultaneous performance of multiple operations. It provides evidence of the validity of processing if the second processing system yields the same result as the first. It requires the auditor write a program that simulates the key features or processes of the program under review. The auditor compares the results obtained from the simulation with the client's output to be able to draw a conclusion about the reliability of client's program. This is a sample diagram of parallel simulation. In this diagram, the auditor will do the same procedure of what the client did, then the auditor will compare manually the result or output of the auditor and clients, so that the auditor can make a conclusion about the reliability of the client's program. Parallel simulation can be accomplished by using the generalized audit software or purpose-written programs. Generalized audit softwares consist of generally available computer packages which have been designed to perform common audit tasks. Purpose-written programs are designed to perform audit tasks in specific circumstances. These are the program designed by the auditor, entity, or an outside programmer. There are other CAATs available that the auditor may use other than the highly complicated computerized systems. First, the snapshots. This technique involves taking a picture of a transaction as it flows through the computer systems. Audit software routines are embedded at the different points in the processing logic to capture the images of the transaction as it progresses through the various stages of processing. Such a technique permits an auditor to track data and evaluate the computer processes applied to the data. Second, Systems Control Audit Review Files or SCARF. It involves embedding audit software modules within an application system to provide continuous monitoring of the system's transactions.